OpenJ9 community call. As always, please add your name and affiliation to the list of people who are attending, just so we know who's regularly attending these calls. And then I'll pause here for a minute to give people an opportunity to add anything to the agenda that isn't already on there. Bring it up now if there's something that needs some discussion right off the bat. All right, so this is not your only opportunity. If something comes up, please chime in throughout the meeting or add it to the any other business section. Today we have a lightning talk from Marius, an update on JITServer. So if you're ready, Marius, you can take over the sharing.
Should be seeing my screen now.
Yes.
Okay, so this is yet another JITServer update. So our intention is to GA JITServer technology together with OpenJ9 release 0.28, which targets Java 17. The code was stable up until the code split, when a last-minute JIT change related to OpenJDK method handles introduced some Java 17 test failures. Java 8 and Java 11 was still good. Then Dimitri then investigated the issue and found a relocation problem that occurs with AOT or with remote compilations. The fix was delivered. However, I would still to double check that the few errors that still appear in the nightly tests also happen without JITServer. As a fallback plan, I think that if needed, we still have the option of postponing the GA for releases 0.29, which targets Java 8, 11, and 17. But for now, we'll stick with the original plan. So anyway, in preparation for GA, we are also updating the documentation and have created a PR describing all the JITServer specific options. And we have another PR for JITServer tuning advice, but more on this aspect on the next slide. So these two doc PRs are currently under review. We are also in the process of publishing a blog post about our experimental results with JITServer on OpenShift in Amazon AWS, and the blog will be posted shortly to be reviewed by the community. And finally, we are seeking to publish a conference paper about the benefits of using AOT server-side caching. And this is work done in collaboration with University of Toronto. We expect to fully implement the feature by the end of the year. Any questions here before I move to the next slide? If not, okay. So now let's talk a bit about tuning JITServer. So this is insight that we gather from our experiments in Amazon. Probably the question that most users will ask is how many clients to connect to a single server instance. And we've seen that between 10 to 20 concurrent clients connected to a single JITServer instance with 1 to 2 gigabytes of RAM works best. Of course, the server can handle even more clients if we increase the amount of computing resources at the server accordingly. But we observe that two smaller server instances may work better than a single larger one. And this is because the load is better balanced between the nodes. Many concurrent clients can put a lot of CPU strain on the server, and to alleviate this, we recommend to start the JVM clients or to apply load to the JVM clients in a staggered fashion. Sometimes this is not possible, but some other times this happens naturally, like in the case of horizontal pod autoscaling, where new clients are started on demand as the load gradually increases. Another partial solution is to use XJIT-enabled JITServer heuristics, which makes the clients share some of the compilation burden. So basically, the clients will perform cheap compilations themselves, while expensive compilations will be sent remotely to the server. What constitutes a chip compilation is determined by JIT heuristics that look at method size, optimization level, available CPU, and memory. Speaking of memory, the server uses two types of memory. So first we have the scratch memory, which is used during compilations and is fully released to the OS at the end of the compilation. And to reduce the amount of scratch memory, we can again use a staggered approach for starting clients, or we could limit the number of compilation threads at the clients. Now, it should be noted that the server already uses a feedback mechanism. So when the server approaches the memory limit, it will send this information to the clients so that they can lower the number of compilation threads. The second type of memory is persistent memory, and this is used for client session caches. The caches are segregated per client, but the ROM class data can be shared among the clients when this option XX JITServer share ROM classes is specified. Of course, this option is effective only when the clients execute identical or similar applications that have a large number of ROM classes in common. About minimizing application stalls, you probably know that most JIT compilations are asynchronous, but a few of them are synchronous, and the application needs to wait for the compilation result before continuing. This can introduce application hiccups, which are larger with JITServer because of the network latency. However, if XX JITServer local async compiles option is specified, the client will execute the synchronous compilations locally at a lower optimization level so that these compilations are fast, and it will follow up with a recompilation executed remotely and asynchronously at a higher optimization level so that we don't lose throughput. Encryption. So network traffic encryption adds overhead, and therefore it should be used only if necessary. In many cases, though, users already employ technologies like Istio, Weave, Linkerd, Calico, and so on. And these technologies already encrypt all network traffic. So using JITServer provided encryption is redundant. Finally, I want to mention that it's very important to ensure session affinity in the Kubernetes YAML files for service definition. So this ensures that all requests coming from a client go to the same server, and thus the client can take advantage of the client session caches that the server maintains. And I put here a very small excerpt from such a YAML file and how a session affinity can be configured. Now, let's talk briefly about monitoring JITServer. So all current monitoring leverages JITServer verbose logging. If a log file is not specified, the output goes to standard error, which is nice because in Docker we can easily inspect standard out and standard error. We wanted an easy way to tell that the client is able to connect to the server, and therefore we introduced the option XX JITServer log connections. As shown in the output on this slide, when this option is enabled, every time a client connects or disconnects from the server, a message will be printed to the verbose log. The server also has a heartbeat thread that periodically outputs statistics like compilation queue size, number of connected clients, number of compilation threads, CPU usage, and memory availability. The heartbeat can be enabled by specifying a frequency for it, as shown on the slide. And finally, we can print a lot of information with XJIT verbose JITServer, but this is recommended only for debugging purposes, just because there is really a lot of information that is printed. It's not mentioned here on this slide, but I should probably tell you that in the future we'll likely have Prometheus custom metrics from the JITServer. So I've engaged a group of students from University of Toronto to implement a JITServer custom metric exporter for Prometheus, but we'll see how that goes, because the quality of the students varies. I'm hopeful that with my help, they will be able to implement it. Yeah, and that's all the update for today. Any questions? Okay,
Marius, did I hear that you'll also have a blog with some of the details on?
Yes. Our student Iman has written that blog. I have made two passes actually, and I told her to put it into our OpenJ9 blogs for review by the entire community.
That's great. I'm really looking forward to reading that as well.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing now.
All right. Thanks, Marius. Pick the sharing back up and we'll continue with the rest of the meeting. I managed to share that. Okay, good. All right. So next week we will have Mark give a lightning talk on the IBM Semaru runtimes. Get that as well. So let's take a look at the recent user-raised issues. There's nothing that's come in the last week. Looks like the ones that are here are getting some attention, so that's good. Is there anything in this list that people feel needs a call-out or a discussion right now? And we will back to the agenda. And the next thing we'll take a quick look at is the download trends from Adopt. This is the old Adopt OpenJDK. Still need to find a replacement for this when they're no longer able to serve these for us. So we see the same typical pattern. We see the drop on the weekend and the start to pick back up again as the week begins. Is there anything people want to call out or discuss around these trends? Jump down and we will take a look at the Java 17 release. So we are at September 7th, of course, and we're a week away from the GA of Java 17. But when I take a look at our milestone plan, I still see 34 open items in this plan, which feels like a lot of risk between now and another week. Pete, are you on the call?
I am on the call.
Have there been discussions or pass-throughs on this list to move out things that don't apply at this point?
Well, earlier this morning there were 52 issues in the list, so it looks like I'm guessing a number of JIT-related issues have been moved out.
Okay, so
I did a pass moving out issues that we've had for quite some time and that have been moved out. For the ones that were opened in the last couple months, I'm just going to wait on Daryl and the other JIT leads to assess those, as I don't think I'm the best person to make that call.
So what sort of issues did you move out, Toby? JIT issues or test failure issues, or because I don't think there was too many. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I moved out a few JIT issues and some test failure issues.
I am seeing a number of things still here that have the blocker tag on them.
Yeah, I'll have to look through the latest builds, but the builds are for JDK 17 are not running clean. There are failures that seem to occur all the time.
Okay, it's not a good thing to be hearing a week away from release.
Right, but I thought we acknowledged a couple weeks ago that we weren't going to ship on time.
thought we had said that we were still aiming to ship on time, but recognized that that might slip. Looks like we're definitely in that slip camp now, given the status.
Right. Well, I had proposed that we would be trying to do an M2 on the actual release date, and then the GA would be following that whenever we're ready, I guess.
There is, sort of a natural limit on that, given that the update will come in a month.
Right. So we have that option to just skip the release, I suppose.
So I think before we go there, probably worth getting an update on the method handle status. Jack or Toby?
Yes, Dan, I can provide an update on this. So the MPE issue that we're seeing, we have fixed part of it. The MPEs that we see due to null parameter 1 in the link to virtual call have been fixed, and I have verified with a 30x grinder on all platforms that it did not occur. This especially applied to the 2 NIO failures that we're seeing with the buffer test. There is, however, intermittent MPEs that we're still seeing occasionally for a special case. That is the sanity where a default method handle invoke test, I think. Oh, sorry, default static invoke test, yes.
Jack, sorry,
yeah.
1 second. Last week you talked about 3 MPE issues, and when I went and dug for the links for those, one of them was replaced by a different issue, and there were 2 others that are open, and all 3 of them appear to have little to no updates in them. Are they still relevant given the fix that went in? The link to virtual fix?
Just 1 second then.
Is this just a tracking issue that bugs have not been updated with the right status?
Like the first one that you have been, the first one that was posted, it is more of a tracking issue. The buffer test itself have already passed, but we're using it to track different failures that look similar enough that have been reported here. JIT team have been working on going through the list and closing out whichever they think doesn't apply.
Okay, so if I was pulling open 13.16.2, I don't see an update in this in 20 days. So is this fixed by something else or known to be fixed by something else? This has been one of the issues that was called out as the NPEs that we're tracking for this release.
Yes. This one is the test splitter. Yes, I believe this is one of the ones that have been called out to be fixed. But
can we get...
I will get the JIT team to confirm it and close out the issue as soon as possible.
Because we really, as we get, we've run past any reasonable chance of getting this shipped in the next week. So it's critical that we get these issues updated with the correct status.
Yep.
There's also
definitely ask the JIT team to go through the list again and make sure that anything that have already been fixed is closed.
Okay. Similarly for 13.16.4, the null pointer exception cannot read field member because the method handle is null.
Yeah.
Is this one related to the fix that's gone in already?
That one I don't believe so, but the JIT team have mentioned they have a few small updates that they have been testing that should fix the issue.
Okay, because again, we're unsplit an update in here.
Yeah. Okay, I will talk with Nazim today and ask him to go through the list to close out anything that is already fixed or the PR is going in and to be linked with the JIT PR. Um, so yeah. Also last week I've went through the list of JTREG tests and re-enabled I think 36 testings in the Java invoke package that we previously disabled due to incompatibility. In terms of the JIT failures with crashes, Devin from the JIT team have mentioned that he went down to one of the PPC Linux issues that it was due to a race condition in the JIT compiler, where the compilation of invoke handle call are depending on possible compilations of other Java methods. When JIT have the option of disable asynchronous compilation, that causes a bug in the JIT code, and he have a PR open to fix that.
Okay.
I've talked with Nazim, who have been working on one of the AIX crashes, and he mentioned that he should get down to the bottom of the issue this week and have a PR ready.
Okay, and so do we have any insight into how risky these PRs are?
Not at the moment. The PPC one, I believe Devin have already been testing locally, and he have confirmed that it does fix the issue, even with some modified test cases where he specifically put in a delay in the compiler to manually cause the race condition, and it's still fixed. So AIX1 Nazim has still not provided a exact update in terms of how feasible the approach he was planning to do will be.
Okay. Are there other updates that you have, Jack?
No, that's it. But I believe Daryl have posted a message in the Slack channel about the performance. He did mention that I think it was the 17 performance was on par with the 11. So we are looking at a similar delta, I believe, based on what Daryl have presented before on August 17th.
Right, so it sounds like we'll get an update in the next day or so. The state is performance-wise from Daryl.
Mm-hmm.
So are there other major issues, functional issues, remaining with the 292 work?
Not at this moment that we're seeing.
Okay, and so the items in the release plan, there's nothing else in here that is not captured in that list of critical issues?
I believe all the issues that we have seen during the nightly builds testing have been opened on a separate issue.
Okay.
Although there might be a few issues that have been, the name might not necessarily correctly reflect which one, because we've put similar stuff under the same name.
Can you take a pass through this release plan today and check the status of any VM 292 related issues and see if we can get them updated to what the current state is, whether if the issue is fixed, let's get them closed out. If they're unknown, let's get that indicated in there and see what we can do to get them validated.
Yeah, sure, definitely. I will take a pass today and update all the information for the status. For the ones that we fixed, I will close out. And if we're using it to track a separate one, I'll close it out as well and open a new one to track with the correct name so that we're tracking the right thing.
If the information in there is still valid and still applies to this issue, then let's just update the name to be accurate.
Okay, will do.
Rather than losing the investigation so far.
Sure, I will definitely put an update in.
There was also a GC assertion failure. When I open that up, it references two other issues. One of them tied to ARch64, which looked to be platform specific and which there is a PR for. The other was mentioned that it was found on Win64. Does anyone have an update on this? Do we have is this 292 related? Is this something else?
Nazim said he suspected that this was a platform-specific change, as they saw similar failures in other cases. So I think, all that is to say, I think someone on the JIT team will probably be better at explaining what's going on here. But I think currently the belief is that these are not 292 related, and that there are other causes for this.
All right, so it sounds like we still have a fair bit of work here to close out the release. So Pete, you had suggested the possibility of delaying or skipping the release and just rolling it into the 0.29 release. The reason I had wanted to put a pin in that until we got here was when I look at that release plan, there's 111 open items. And we had tentatively scheduled the code split for, I think, the 5th.
Yeah, that would happen today, which I was going to bring up later.
So if we want to tie the two releases together, I'm a little concerned about closing out the list of items that are here.
Right. Obviously, we're not going to be able to close them all out. A lot of them will be moved forward, as usually happens.
Yeah, I think the thing that would be good to understand is how many of these are stability issues. Hopefully there's fewer of those, given that 8 and 11 have been out for long periods of time.
So I haven't had a chance to look at the builds that happened when I was on vacation, but I think 8 and 11 are still in good shape. Looking at the latest builds. I'd expect that we would ship 0.29 on time, and we would ship 17.01, and regardless of the status. And if there are issues that need to be fixed before the next release 3 months later, we'd discuss having another interim release.
Okay.
And I'm not saying we shouldn't ship Jav 17 GA, but if we run out of time, it may not be an option, right? It would make no sense to ship Jav 17 GA when 17.01 is released. We might as well just ship that one instead.
Yeah, I'm just looking at a GA of September 14th to get a build completed with the issues we have to get testing on that done. I'm significantly concerned that even targeting the October 19th, do we think that we can contain the pieces that need to go into that?
I think we should put something out, even if it still has issues. Same as we're going to put an M2 build out on the 14th, or around the 14th. Kind of a snapshot of where we're at.
Okay. And IBM's able to produce those builds for us?
I believe so. Adam will have to comment on that. So we do have an M1 build that I think could be published today.
Okay. Be good to get out in people's hands.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a problem to do them too next week. M1 build is done, so we're just going through the test results now, and then if there's nothing huge, we'll publish today. and I'll share the links on Slack when available.
I mean, I think we should publish it regardless of the test results. There are test failures and the things that we're still working on, but we should put M1 out there and continue to work towards M2.
Okay.
Be good to get the links for that, and we can share them on Slack.
Yeah, I'll put it in the announce channel once it's up on GitHub.
All right. Is there anything else that we should discuss here? Just comment again that our plan of record is a day-by-day slip on the Java 17 release with a fallback of shipping that release as part of the 0.29 update. Great. Do we have an update on Adopt?
Just a quick one, I guess. I put a link in to see where we're at with the July release. There's Solaris and ARM Linux that remain. Everything else is pretty much closed off, including the JRE 8s and 11s. September release, we're a week away from that. We expect to get TCK materials days after the GA tags are available. That's how it normally works, so that will delay us somewhat. And I guess the other note around the September release is we're also trying to add the M1 platform. We've got funding and permission to add a TCK machine, so that's the only hurdle left for that to be added to the September release. That's it. That's all I have for an update today.
Thanks, Shelley. Adam, is there an infra update?
Yeah, sorry, my mute button was stuck. So the Artifactory disk is slightly climbing still. I think that was expected based on new builds.
Yeah, because we can continue to have failures in our nightly builds every night, so artifacts.
The UNB Artifactory is also way up. So I need to fix the cleanup job on that because it's been broken for a while. In terms of the new Edge machine, Raj has won each of Ubuntu 20 and sent 8 guests ready to test. So he's going to be doing that today. And then if they're good, then we can loan them out to the other 3 each. So that'll be 8 total. And then we can get them added. So hopefully that'll be finished up this week. That's about it for updates.
Thanks, Adam. Don't see Devin on the call, so we'll skip the CMake update. Marius, given the lightning talk, we'll skip the JITServer update as well.
Yeah.
That's okay. Obi, is there anything you wanted to call out for Snapshot Restore?
We made some minor additions to the Snapshot API just to provide some more capabilities that exist in the CRU API list. Otherwise, nothing new to update. Next up, we're looking at how to propagate environment variables in a Docker environment. That seems to be the next big blocker on the list. And that's it.
Thanks, Toby. We'll skip over Loom, given the time and the current deferral. Cheng, is there anything you want to call out for Panama?
In terms of opcode, I'm keeping working on the code of memory allocation for the general sync against GAG's suggestion, because we just need a simplified version of with a fixed page size to deal with the general sync. And there'll still be quite a lot of the discussion with the JIT team about how to handle the passing argument onto the stack, because G-Team needs to determine how to materialize the argument for us. Yeah, that's pretty much everything on my side.
Thanks, Cheng. Peter, is there an update on the spell check tool?
No, the guy doing that has gone silent. Haven't had any updates.
I think we can skip the discussion around monitoring, because that'll be a longer discussion.
So we didn't discuss the code split date for 029. So we could do it now from some SHAs from the weekend, or we could delay it by a week. So looking for opinions on what people think.
Based on the list of changes, I would support delaying it by a week.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yes, that would shift our dates there to code split on the 13th.
Yeah, I mean, really would be using SHAs from probably the 12th, but the work to do the split would happen on the 13th. And then I guess M2 for Java 17 would take priority, and then we try to do an M1 build for 029 when we have the resource to do that.
Makes sense.
Probably we could skip doing a build for Java 17 for 029. Just do 8 and 11.
Yeah, that makes sense. The build's coming out for 17 anyways, so. Is there anything else that we should discuss today? All right, then thank you, everybody. Let's keep in touch, and we'll meet again next week.
Thanks.